This is the Writers Podcast, a Writers After Dark radio production, bringing you the best in writing advice, news, trends, and interviews. Hosted by award-winning authors S.K. Anthony and Raymond Esposito.
Hey, welcome back to the Writers Podcast. Tonight's episode, The Imposter Syndrome. I am Raymond Esposito, and I'm here in the studio with my co-host, S. Catherine Anthony. Catherine, how are you tonight?
I'm good. You know, to start this episode, I'd like to ask that you sit back and relax and answer this for us.
Me, personally, or the audience?
You personally, the audience, anybody who dare call himself a writer. So, tell me this. Have the words, "I'm not a real writer," ever crossed your mind? Do you ever feel like your writing just isn't good enough?
Well, to answer that, today we're going to discuss the two sides of the psychology of writers. The first is something called imposter syndrome, which is a feeling like we don't deserve the success or the accolades that we've received. And on the other side of that is self-esteem, where we over-criticize ourselves for perceived failures. If you're not familiar with the term imposter syndrome, you can sum it up as a feeling that you're a fraud. For writers, it's often that inner voice that whispers, "You have no right to think of yourself as an author."
Yeah.
Was that dramatic enough?
I thought that was perfectly dramatic. You know, maybe you could do it, try it again. Do it a little more, give it a little more.
You have no right to think of yourself as an author.
You know, that's perfect for a dark fiction author. I love it.
That's how I roll.
Yeah, you know, writers are some of the most susceptible people when it comes to this issue. So, you know, imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. We've all been there, right? Which writer hasn't doubted their skills at some point or another? Or hasn't brushed off praise? I mean, I never ever do that. And it's not because they're being humble, but because they genuinely lack confidence in their work.
And the term imposter syndrome was coined in 1978 by psychologists Pauline R. Clance and Susanna Imes. And they defined it as a mental state where, despite evidence of ability or even success, the individual remains convinced that he or she is a fraud, that their success is in some way not deserved. These folks tend to dismiss any proof of their abilities or achievements as luck or timing or even deception. They operate under this belief that if others looked more closely, that they'd see that they don't know what they're doing and they don't deserve the accolades that they've received.
Personally, I don't suffer from it. Stop laughing. It's not that I struggle to accept my own abilities. It's just that I really don't have any abilities. I don't have them, like, at all.
Yeah, and that award that you received and being on the Amazon bestseller list, that stuff was just pure. What was it? It was luck. You just got, like, they had nobody, like the award, they just had nobody left to give it to.
How about your award and your bestseller list? Was that also luck?
Kat, we're not talking about me. We're talking about your problem with imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm. But you know, I feel like I've been living on the phrase "fake it till you make it, baby." Mm-hmm. Because yes, I do suffer from imposter syndrome, but that's okay. I feel better knowing that despite how scary that term sounds, imposter syndrome isn't any type of illness. It's just an emotional state.
Right, because you're crazy, but it's not. That's not the thing that defines you as being crazy. There's a whole nother list, but it's not that particular thing.
Exactly. But it's not an illness, right? It's just an emotional state that haunts all of us creative types. But this makes me wonder if it sounds kind of silly to people who've never experienced it, because honestly, when you break it down, really does sound silly.
Well, artists such as writers and actors, musicians and painters, they seem to be especially prone to imposter syndrome. Consider German author Franz Kafka. He's best known for his stories of alienation like The Trial, The Castle, and Metamorphosis. Kafka is regarded as one of the major figures in 20th century literature.
Right.
His style of writing earned its own description. It's Kafkaesque. And it's a powerful ability to create this nice, nightmarishly complex and surreal story world. The technique is so good that it's been used in movies such as Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, the cult classic Videodrome, and even Martin Scorsese's 1980 film After Hours.
Nice.
Kafka literally, so this guy literally brought the qualities of nightmares and dreams to the page, and yet he finished very few of his novels because he didn't believe his work was any quality. In fact, he asked his close friend Max Brod to destroy all of his written work upon his death. Kafka's death. Fortunately, Max was like, "No, you're a genius," and he published it, and that's why we can enjoy Kafka today. But he's not. Kafka's not alone. Although maybe he's the most severe case of imposter syndrome, plenty of other famous people suffer from it.
It is fascinating how so many accomplished artists suffer from self-doubt. Maya Angelou, whose writing career spanned more than 50 years, was a victim of imposter syndrome. And even Tina Fey says she suffers from it. Right? To quote her, she said, "The beauty of imposter syndrome is you vacillate between extreme egomania and a complete feeling of, I'm a fraud. Oh God, they're onto me. I'm a fraud. So you just try to write the egomania when it comes and enjoy it, and then slide through the idea of fraud." I think that sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah, and when you consider the list, Oscar-winning actor Tom Hanks, John Green, the best-selling author of The Fault in Our Stars, Neil Gaiman, who wrote the film Coraline and the best-selling novel American Gods, and even actress Emma Watson, they all profess to suffering from imposter syndrome. You know, not surprisingly, women suffer from it at a far greater rate than men, and that's most likely because Western society tends to overvalue the male strategies and qualities when defining success.
I agree. But on the other hand, I think women also set very unrealistic expectations for themselves. You know, we're pretty much our own worst enemies. Men are different with this stuff. I don't think it's natural for you guys to discuss feelings or admit your vulnerability. Plus, you guys tend to be more on the side of fixing the problem, like just writing more and learning how to murder your weakness, all while we drown ourselves in our emotions and a tub of ice cream.
Yeah, well... yes and no. I mean, I think men may be better at hiding it, but we're also more likely to be overconfident idiots. But either way, imposter syndrome is something we tend to suffer in solitude, just like we can't cry at movies. So, you know, maybe we just don't talk about it as openly as women do.
You know, but this gender issue also applies to publishing. For one woman writing a genre that's usually dominated by males, for example, J.K. Rowling, she used initials so her books would be more marketable to boys. Her name is Joanne Rowling, and she doesn't even have a middle name. Female authors are encouraged to take on pen names that sound less feminine, so they will sell more books. And while I know mine sounds like that,
names and
SK Anthony, that wasn't even on purpose. I used my kids' initials along with mine. S, my real name is Shani. I go by Catherine, though. Catherine is my daughter's middle name, and Anthony is my son's middle name. So.
And the Venezuelan Vixen that's your superhero name.
Obviously.
But the same is true for male writers in the romance and erotica. They pick names that sound gender neutral. You know, we can think of imposter syndrome as a sort of branch of low self-esteem. And, you know, self-esteem is the process of personal estimations of worth, ability, or value. And statistically, over 70% of Americans suffer from some level of low self-esteem. That may be because culturally, individual achievement is so highly rated in Western civilization. But what this research demonstrates is that confidence is often inversely proportional to knowledge.
Yeah. People who know less about things tend to be more confident in their knowledge about those things and tend to overestimate both their ability and their performance.
Yeah, we see this phenomenon often in the self-publishing world. The truly gifted writer who doesn't think their work is good enough, and people who write this horrible crap, who just run around in this gleeful self-promotion.
That is so true. Look, how often do we hear an author introduce their work with a disclaimer? This isn't very good, but maybe you want to read it. I'm not really done with this, but can you take a look? Or, you know, the one I do all the time is, I think this needs a lot of work. And then you have the other one saying, this is a masterpiece. Read it. You're going to love it. I had one of those. And no. I couldn't even get past the first chapter. That author vomited purple prose on every single page.
Yeah, and purple prose can be really funny. I love to play with it, but someone who takes it seriously and thinks...
But that's how you know, like, when they think they know everything.
Which brings
That's
us back to imposter syndrome and the question of why do people who are really good and talented at things think they're a fraud? Why do their own personal estimations not match up with what others are telling them?
Humility is one thing. It does open you up and keep you grounded.
Mm-hmm.
But, this self-negation and dismissing your abilities does completely shut you down. So why do we do it? I know I do it all the time.
Yeah, a part of imposter syndrome and self-esteem issues are a result of being in that third state of conscious competence. It can create like an overfocus on the things we aren't good at rather than a focus on the things that we excel at. Plus, in the large scope, society, or more specifically institutions, have laid this groundwork for these kind of feelings. We live in a world of paper proclamations, university degrees, earned letters behind your name, like, PhD and MBA, and the endless certifications you can earn. All of these things create the idea that in order to be real, first you have to receive permission from some institutionalized authority.
I'm waiting for the day I can add some podcaster initials behind my name. Would that help make us legit authorities as rambling writers, you think?
Yeah, because I have a PhD in podcasting.
POD, yeah, more like BS. But, writers have their own institutionalized authorities. Master of Fine Arts programs, New York Times bestsellers lists, and endless workshops.
Yeah, there's always some new certificate or authority to turn to for your writing credentials. And yet some of the best and most famous writers in history, they never saw the inside of a creating writing course or a workshop. It's not to say these things aren't helpful, because obviously they can make your writing better. It's just that the lack of these paper proclamations, they aren't the measure of one's skills and ability.
Absolutely true. Just because you don't have a fancy title or a degree, it doesn't mean you can't write. Just because you don't know everything doesn't mean you know nothing or that you're a fraud. Mm-hmm. You're a writer, goddammit. Sorry, I got a little excited there, but you are a freaking writer, so own it.
The second societal pressure comes from over-comparisons. People with imposter syndrome and self-esteem concerns, they tend to make upward comparisons. That is, they compare their work only to that of people they think are better than they are. For example, my book is okay, but I'm no Hemingway.
That is a really important point to remember. Not to compare yourself to anyone but you. Constantly obsessing over someone else's success can cause paralysis. And if you want to beat this thing, just try to do better than you did last time. Forget Hemingway and everyone else. The only person you have to beat is you.
It's an excellent plan.
I think so.
They also compare themselves to social media activities. It's funny because we all know that social media is a bunch of lies. People only post the good stuff, only the wins. You hear about the new job, but you didn't hear about the layoff. It's like talking to a gambler who tells you how much they won, but never how much they lost to win that money.
Plus, overuse or overvaluing social media and making comparison to your own life has been shown to decrease happiness. The grass is always greener because we never consider the struggle. It's like that saying, my overnight success took me 20 years. Easy peasy.
In the more personal view, there's plenty of things that can falsely reinforce our belief that we're a fraud or not worthy of the praise. In book writing, a lack of sales is one. Although in this industry, very few authors enjoy high sales, sales are the nature of the current market. They're not a reflection of your value.
Number 2, lack of reviews. Most readers don't leave reviews. Most don't even understand how important the feedback is to authors.
There's a public service campaign. And the third is the single bad review. We have a tendency to place a greater weight on the negative than on the positive. This is especially true with imposter syndrome. And when you put all those things together, the results are the real problem. Because the problem with both imposter syndrome and self-esteem issues is the things that it can lead us to do or not do. Fear of writing honestly, deleting the best parts because we're too afraid to be honest, and instead we focus on what we think people want to read. It's really a fear of showing your real self in the work.
Yep. Also, like procrastination and second-guessing yourself. You keep checking every single comma, every word, every sentence. And once you've done that, you'll just check some more.
Yes, you do.
But while we do have to edit what we publish, obsessing over being perfect might make you miss deadlines. All because you're feeding that doubt. And I don't think it's a writing excuse. We genuinely feel this way.
Yes, and another result is lowering prices because we devalue our work. It's funny, we're programmed to believe that no one's going to pay any more than $2.99 for our ebook. I often talk about romance writer Meredith Wild.
Wait, Meredith Wild? I'm convinced she's your romance author girlfriend at this point. You keep bringing her up.
She is, but the restraining order pretty much defined our relationship. But anyways, after her own success, she began her own publishing company and has signed several promising authors. And one of the first things she does is she raises the prices of their books. It's not to make money, although I'm sure there's some of that in there, but she does it because she sees the value of their writing.
Yeah, and on the other hand, another consequence of imposter syndrome, you hurt yourself when you let fear give in. You don't pitch for being published on well-known publications because you think your writing is simply not good enough.
Or conversely, you feel like you need to pursue permission to publish and you wait on traditional publishing contracts before sharing your work. And our favorite consequence, SK?
Not promoting your work because you don't want to appear foolish. And boy, don't the two of us know this one.
Yep. So how can we overcome it? How can we enjoy and believe we earned our successes and not beat ourselves up over every little mistake?
First of all, accept that it's natural and normal to feel insecure. Just remember that feeling stupid doesn't mean you actually are. Everyone has off days.
And second, be objective. Psychologist Nathaniel Branden, who wrote The Psychology of Self-Esteem, he suggests a rational approach. That is to look objectively at ourselves, our work, and our efforts and evaluate these things outside of subjective thoughts. He calls it having a good relationship with reality. Being objective means we look at the positive reviews, awards, and sales, and we look at those things objectively.
Yeah, try to get out of the habit of dismissing positive feedback. Forget. Sorry, I paused because I was just thinking how ironic it was that I was saying that. But, but seriously, don't,
do as we
do
say,
as I say.
not as we do.
Yes, don't do as exactly. Don't do as I do, but forget about being self-deprecating and truly listen to what they say about your writing. Accept your strength and weakness, enjoy the positive feedback, and learn from the negative.
I feel like you should be saying this in front of you should be saying this in front of a mirror every morning, but go ahead.
Stop making faces to me. I know. I get it. But criticism is inevitable for writers. And this is good. How else would we learn to improve our craft, right? Okay, SK, as I say to myself, right. You listen to me too if you're actually listening to us.
This is just her internal dialogue.
Try not to feed the monster. Just study the comments and see which points you can use constructively to improve your writing.
Yeah, I mean, I just assume that anybody who gives any of my books less than a 5-star review is just an overconfident idiot who doesn't understand the genius of my work. But Ellis and
all you have are 5 stars.
Listen, I have a 3-star.
Awards and
I have a 3-star review because
you didn't have enough romance in your zombie. Yeah.
Anyways, Ellis and Harper, who wrote A Guide to Rational Living, suggests that if we know how we generate negative thoughts, if SK can figure out where her negative thoughts are coming from, then you can use that information to reverse it and to create positive ones.
It's not that I have negative thoughts. It's the darkness that I feel comes from my soul.
The darkness is in my soul. And if those two things don't work, the third is something called coherence therapy, which often uses a writing component. And what coherence therapy preaches is that if you do something like keeping a journal of objective facts related to your success, then by doing that, we can avoid attributing things like luck or happenstance to our wins.
A journal for a writer?
Yeah,
that's a goal.
Pick one of the 20 that you have and start writing good things in it.
My therapy is I just simply try to walk it off. So I say, go walk around your house, your block, your neighbor's house, wherever. And
I think I do
mind that way as well.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think it's funny that you probably do 25,030 steps a day. That's a lot of walking off. But walking is an excellent choice. There have been several studies on the mental health benefits of walking, and a recent study conducted by California State University in Long Beach confirmed that walking improves both energy levels and mood.
That's why I'm such a sunshine.
Yes. and Christiana Heish of Queensland University conducted a study which appeared in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. And her study found that women who walked 200 minutes per week were not limited by their depression even 3 years after they began the walking process. One reason for this may be that walking creates a better mind-body connection, and the exercise releases the hormones that are related to feelings of pleasure and well-being.
It really does help with creativity too. Like, I use it as a form of meditation in a way. I go on and start thinking of scenes, and it really does unlock your creativity. Again, try it. Just
my
try
only
it.
suggestion is if you get a Fitbit and you start walking, do not friend SK through the app, because she will shame you on days that maybe you had a sore back, or you're just busy and you didn't log 25,000 steps.
I recently had a hernia surgery, and even then I can
Shut up.
frame it. But
So the fourth thing, take a chance. The things we think suck are often our best work. How often do I say, okay, SK, this week's article is terrible, and then it turns out to be one of the highest rated?
all the time.
And that's the point. Part of the problem is we're terrible at objectively estimating the value of our work.
True, and hey, it's okay. You will make mistakes. When professional athletes don't win the big game, they watch it playback tape, learn what they can do better next time, and they get back into the game. You get to do this too. Write, learn, rewrite, set writing goals, and be realistic.
Absolutely. And fifth, get together with other like-minded people. Find that support, join a writing group, or just run your work past a few author friends. But really talk to them. Chances are most of them have experienced the same imposter feeling as you at some stage or another of their career.
That's true. Talking to one another about these feelings is helpful to overcoming them. One of the most important things to keep in mind if you're suffering from imposter syndrome is that you're not alone.
Sixth, since you own your failures, you might as well own your successes. Own that success no matter how small your achievements might seem. Take credit for them. You can work on your self-confidence. Just focus on what you love to do and reprogram your brain to believe that you do these things really well.
Hey, just try to remember the countless hours you poured into your manuscript, all the sleepless nights you spent writing and rewriting, and don't dismiss your work. That's what got you here. It's not a clever scam or a lucky break.
Mm-hmm. Seventh, use the power of doubt to improve. I think it's important to recognize that imposter syndrome is not a reality-based issue. The feelings are real, but the self-evaluation is flawed. It's like being a parent. No matter how well we do, we always wonder if maybe we could have done things better.
And doubt isn't entirely a bad thing. Having imposter syndrome makes it a lot easier for me to admit my mistakes, because I expect them to happen. It also encourages me to ask questions. I still wouldn't consider the mindset being imposter syndrome to be logical or healthy, but it certainly can make educating myself a lot easier sometimes.
And finally, write for yourself first, then for one person, then for the world.
Remember why you write. Go back to the basics. Remember that you are an artist and focus on your value, not on perfection.
If you write from the heart and say the things you really want to say, then you have achieved success.
Yeah, stay positive and keep writing. Own your gift and embrace that drive that most people don't have. You're doing something most people never manage to do with their lives.
And so we'll leave you with this quote from Robert H. Schuller.
What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail?
Apparently, a podcast.
Well, as if we thought we could.
See you next week.
We don't know yet.
Thank you for listening to the Writers Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more articles, news and advice, visit our website, writersafterdark.net, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The Writers Podcast is a Writers After Dark radio production. Executive producers SK Anthony and Raymond Esposito. Copyright 2017.